Hello friends, I am Dr. Vivek Jain, Faculty of Preventive and Social Medicine, that is Community Medicine, with the online platform PrepLadder. I welcome you to discussion of FMG June 2021. Friends, before we start, let me tell you my overall impression for the PSM subject in this particular paper. Friends, what I realized this time, according to students, the paper was easy to moderate. Why we are saying like this? Because many students were able to score 230 plus scores. Even students have scored above 250 out of 300. So exam was definitely not difficult. When I look at my own subject PSM per se, then I realized few things. Number one, FMG paper was tricky this time in June 2021, but at least PSM was relatively easier. Number two, I realized that most of the questions were again one-liners, the typical NB FMG pattern, but there were few clinical questions which extended into 2 to 3 lines each. Number 3, many questions were from expected topics. Number 4, many questions were from the often repeated topics also. And out of all the questions, number 5, there were only hardly 1 to 2 questions which were never heard type of questions. Friends, I'll be failing in my duty if I don't thank students who have helped me construct the FMG June 2021 pattern type of questions. So I sincerely thank all the subscribers of Dr. Vivek Jain PSM mobile application and the Facebook groups of PrepLadder Premium Club, FMG Preparation by PrepLadder again on Facebook, Instagram groups, and over a Zoom meeting, a group of 20 students who helped me a lot in reconstructing these FMG pattern questions. I must thank Dr. Charu, Dr. Noob, Dr. Zen, Dr. Sai Kumar from ISM, Dr. Modi Srinath from CSU, Dr. Simran, Dr. Kesham, and Dr. Neha especially. Friends, overall, in FMG June 2021, there were 40 questions from the subject of preventive and social medicine, out of which 37 were direct questions. But there were at least 3 questions which had overlap with other subjects also. So guys, what are you waiting for? Let us start with the first question, which is coming on your screen right now. So first question, recent transmission of malaria can be calculated from which of the following? Annual parasitic incidence, infant parasite rate, slide positivity rate, or is it spleen rate? Very right. These are all indicators of malaria transmission. Some were in pre-malariometric era, some in later. The answer to this question is very right. Infant parasite rate. Why we are saying like this? If you are able to find parasite, malarial parasite in infants, infant means less than 12 months age. That is a direct indicator that transmission had been taking place in previous 12 months or last 1 year. So definitely it is an indicator of recent transmission. If this infant parasite rate is 0 for consecutively 3 years minimum, then we directly declare absence of malaria transmission in that particular area or community. Now let's look at other indicators given in the choice. When we look at API, annual parasitic incidence, this is actually number of cases divided by total population surveyed in 2000. It is the most sophisticated measure among all the indicators, and of what? It is a most sophisticated measure of malaria control in the community. At the same time, when you are operating the program, if you look at ABER, that is annual blood examination rate, it is actually an indicator of operational efficiency, because it tells us how many slides have been prepared out of the cases reported into 100 expressed as a percentage, because it tells us slides examined divided by population surveyed and multiplier is 100 expressed as a percentage. When we look at spleen rate, this is actually measured in 2 to 10 years age children, those who present with enlarged spleen, and this spleen rate is an indicator of endemicity. So I'll again repeat, annual parasitic incidence, most sophisticated measure of malaria control. ABER, annual blood examination rate, indicator of operational efficiency. IPR, infant parasite rate, indicator of recent transmission of malaria in the community. And spleen rate in 2 to 10 years age children indicate endemicity of malaria in that particular community. You must read about other indicators as I have discussed in the malaria video in the communicable disease section of my app. Moving to the next question, friends, the question was quite easy. Which of the following is not a principle of primary healthcare? If you look, primary healthcare has got 8 elements or components, but it has got a total of 4 pillars, also known as 4 principles of primary healthcare. And what are these? These are: number 1, equitable distribution. Number 2, community participation. Number 3, appropriate technology. And number 4 is intersectoral coordination. So friends, now the question becomes very easy. Answer to this question is choice number D. Actually, family mobilization is not included as a principle or a pillar of primary healthcare. Now friends, you must understand what is the meaning of appropriate technology. It means technology should be cheaper, but it should give results like expensive technology. Good examples include ORS. 90% diarrheal deaths it can prevent on its own alone. No antibiotics are required. VVM, vaccine vial monitor, a simple sticker pasted on vaccine vial help us monitor temperature of cold chain, whether the vaccine was maintained in that or not. Stand pipe in a village, and growth chart, which is used to monitor growth of a child in a very easy manner. Community participation, if you look, one of the good examples is ASHA worker. ASHA worker under NRHM is selected from the same village community where she is supposed to work. So a very good example of community participation. Moving to the next question, question number 3, which of the following is the largest fund for population and reproduction related programs? Friends, as the name is telling you, population and reproduction related programs. Answer to this question is choice number C, UNFPA. What is that? This is United Nations Fund for Population Activities, now known as United Nations Population Fund. So fund for population activities, population fund. So it is directly related to population and reproductive health programs. Its logo look like this. When we look at UNFPA, it is mainly working towards 3 important goals. What are these? Number 1 is to meet unmet need of family planning. Number 2, to totally decrease or bring to zero preventable maternal deaths. And number 3 is to combat and reduce gender-based violence and similar harmful practices. So this is United Nations Population Fund. This is the answer. When we look at other choices, UNESCO, choice number A. So you can see it focus on education, culture, and science to promote peace across the planet. UNICEF, United Nations International Children Emergency Fund. So it is mainly concerned with health of children along with their development. And when we look at WHO, all of us know it is an international health agency, World Health Organization, which is mainly concerned with international public health programs. It also aims to train health professionals. Its main work is to develop health education and IC materials for different health programs in the country, and but of course promote health education. Now friends, it will be a good thing if you look at the other agencies of importance which are mentioned in these choices. Let's look at them one by one. First we look at CBHI, Central Bureau for Health Intelligence. CBHI, which was established in 1961, it aims to develop in India a very strong HMIS, Health Management Information System in the country, which can provide very reliable national level health information, which will help further in better decision and health planning. ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, 1911, as the name is telling us, this is concerned as the apex body for biomedical research in the country. And when we look at NML, National Medical Library, established in 1966, this is a library for all the health professionals in the country. Friends, please remember, by chance, for all these four agencies, headquarters are located at the capital of the country, New Delhi. Another question was Sustainable Development Goals SDG are under which health organization? Friends, Sustainable Development Goals were launched in 2015 and they are meant for next 15 years. So all of us know their target year is 2030, and what do they strive for? They strive to end poverty and promote peace and prosperity by the year 2030. These sustainable development goals have been given by which agency? That is United Nations. And when we look at answer to the question, that is a specific part of that UNDP, that is United Nations Development Program. The major role of UNDP with regard to sustainable development goals is to help all the member countries, that is around 170 countries and regions, achieve SDGs by way of integrated solutions. All of us know there are 17 total sustainable development goals, out of which only one goal is directly health related, that is goal number 3. Promote health and well-being is the only sustainable development goal which is directly health related, goal number 3. Moving to the next question. This question was which organization funds for National TB Program of India? Now friends, I consulted with several students. Many of them were of the view that this question was exactly asked in this manner. So that creates a slight tricky situation because multiple health agencies are actually involved in funding for the national TB program of our country. When we look at the oldest organization, that was SIDA, Swedish International Development Agencies, which was funding TB program since decades. In fact, when National TB Control Program was converted to Revised National TB Control Program, SIDA played a big role in that. Besides SIDA, other health agencies which are funding for National TB program of our country include World Bank, also DFID, Department for International Development, and this is funding mainly via WHO, World Health Organization. Beside this, GDF and GFATM agencies are also involved in funding of TB program. GDF is Global TB Drug Facility and GFATM is Global Fund to Fight Against AIDS, TB and Malaria. Beside this, agencies such as USAID and DANIDA, Danish International Development Agency, also is funding the TB program. One must not forget the central government of India is also pitching in with grant in aid. So answer to this question actually are three choices: World Bank, WHO and SIDA are currently funding the TB program of our country. Moving to the next question, this was an image based question. Identify the diagram shown in the image below. Is it histogram, multiple bar diagram, component bar diagram or none of the above? So friends, first of all we should see what is the difference between histogram and bar diagram, and then we should see what is the difference between component bar diagram and multiple bar diagram. So let's look at that. Identify first, this is which diagram? You can see all the bars are attached to each other. So I can say this is continuous and quantitative data. So this is definitely a type of very right histogram. Now when we look at the next two diagrams, you can see here bars are not attached to each other, rather there is gap between the bars in both the diagrams. So this is actually a type of discontinuous, or you can say discrete qualitative data. So both of these are definitely types of bar diagram. Then what is the difference between them? If you look at the first bar diagram on the left side, each bar you can see is having 1, 2, 3 and 4 different components. So each bar is divided into component. So this is a component bar diagram. Look at the second bar diagram. Definitely there is gap between the bars, but there are two bars attached to each other. So multiple bars are attached to each other. So this is a multiple bar chart or multiple bar diagram. Why it is not a histogram? Because there is gap or spacing between the bars also. So let's go back to our question now. Now it becomes easy to identify. So now you can see this question. Is it a histogram? No. Bars are not attached to each other. There is a gap between bars. So this is qualitative, discrete or discontinuous data. So definitely it is a bar diagram. Now look at this bar. Each bar is having 3 components. So this is a type of, very right, component bar diagram. Let us move to the next question. Again, it was an image based question, one of the easy repeated question. We have discussed so many times at different places, chapter of communicable disease, even in entomology, even in image based questions in my mobile app also. So in video lectures you must have seen, this is which vector. First you have to identify, then you have to identify the disease it can transmit. Three important mosquito vectors of India are Anopheles, Aedes, Culex. How do we identify them? When we look at Anopheles, how does it sit while taking a bite from a person? It sits exactly at an angle of 45 degree to the surface of skin while taking a bite, maybe like this, you can see. So approximately at an angle of 45 degree to the surface of skin. Whereas when we look at Aedes and Culex, how do they sit while taking a bite from the skin? They sit exactly parallel to the surface of skin like this. But in this parallel posture, there is a small bend around the neck of the mosquito, and this bend is known as hunchback posture. Then how do you differentiate between Aedes and Culex? Aedes has white stripes on body and legs, so that is known as tiger mosquito. Culex is not having any such white stripes on body and legs. So let us first try to identify the mosquito which is given in this photograph. Is it Anopheles, Culex or Aedes? Look at the sitting posture. You can see it is sitting exactly parallel to the skin with a small hunch or bend around the neck. So definitely it is not sitting at 45 degree. It is sitting parallel with a hunch. So it has to be either Aedes or Culex. Can you see any white stripes on body and legs? No. So it is not Aedes, it is not tiger mosquito. So definitely this has to be Culex mosquito. And Culex can transmit which important diseases? Culex can transmit three important diseases. First is lymphatic filariasis, also known as Brugian filariasis. This filariasis is transmitted by which species of Culex? That is Culex quinquefasciatus, also known as Culex fatigans. So this is first important disease Culex can transmit. Second important disease it can transmit is JE, Japanese encephalitis. And what is the vector, major vector of Japanese encephalitis in India? That is Culex Tritineorhynchus. And third important disease Culex can transmit is West Nile fever. So answer to this question is choice number A, Japanese encephalitis. All of us know malaria is transmitted by Anopheles, whereas dengue and chikungunya are transmitted by Aedes tiger mosquito. Let us move to the next question now. Question was asked that an ANM receives two open vaccine vials, one of MR, measles rubella vaccine, and second vial was pentavalent vaccine vial which can be used for immunization round. Choices were discard MR, use pentavalent, use MR, discard pentavalent. Both should be discarded, both can be used. Friends, answer to this question is based on open vial policy of India. When we look at open vial policy for vaccines, you must know this policy permits reuse of opened multi-dose vaccine vials, and if maintained according to the recommended guidelines, this use is permitted up to 28 days. Now friends, you must remember this open vial policy is applicable for which vaccine vials? This includes DPT, TT, tetanus toxoid vaccine vial, hepatitis B, OPV, oral polio vaccine, that is Sabin vaccine. Along with that, it is also applicable for pentavalent vaccine, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, and IPV, inactivated polio vaccine, that is Salk vaccine. At the same time, this open vaccine vial policy is not applicable for BCG. Also, it is not applicable for another lyophilized vaccine, that is measles or MR combination vaccine. It is also not applicable for Japanese encephalitis and rotavirus vaccine. So friends, now the answer to this question becomes quite simple. Based on open vaccine vial policy of India, the ANM will have to discard MR because open vial policy is not applicable on that, but pentavalent it is applicable. So pentavalent vaccine could be used up to 28 days. This question came from occupational health. We have discussed in the app in detail also. A person with a history of 30 years working in cardboard manufacturing factory or industry, he develops breathlessness and cough. X-ray shows mottling in lungs, disease most likely. Friends, the clue in this particular question is cardboard manufacturing factory. So definitely we are talking of a particular pneumoconiosis. What is used in production of cardboard? That is bagasse, a remnant of sugarcane. So answer to this question is choice number A, bagassosis. Pneumoconiosis occurs due to occupational exposure to dust. Generally the particle size is 0.5 to 3 micron. When we look at bagassosis, it occurs due to generation of bagasse or the sugarcane fiber dust. Now in which industries this dust is generated? Logically first has to be in sugar mill or sugar industry where sugarcane is processed for generation of sugar. Beside this, cardboard industry, paper industry, and rayon industry also. Friends, if I share a particular historical fact with you, in fact this disease bagassosis was historically first reported in 1955 in Kolkata, and that too only from a cardboard manufacturing firm only. Moving to the next question, which biomedical waste management color bag is disposed by incineration? Friends, that is actually yellow bag. Now we have discussed biomedical waste management latest guidelines extensively in detail in my mobile app videos. So you must have gone through them. Kindly go through them. This is a fairly commonly asked topic in detail. Now when we look at yellow bag, it has many types of biomedical waste in that. That includes animal waste, human anatomical waste, soiled waste, chemical waste, discarded or expired medicine waste. Beside this, even chemical waste. The new biomedical waste category included, that is bed linen and mattresses, as well as microbiological, biotechnological waste. All these waste are disposed in yellow bag, which is finally sent for incineration. Friends, we must know this incineration is done above a temperature of 1200 degrees centigrade, and this is a type of high temperature dry oxidation. Red bag, which is pre-treated with autoclaving, microwaving or hydroclaving, this is finally disposed of for energy recovery, fuel oil, or even road making. When we look at white bag, this white bag is actually a white container. It contains metallic sharps. So this particular white container, translucent container, is disposed by final mechanism is by reaching iron foundries or by landfills. And finally, the last one, the blue bag, which contains metallic implants or glassware. This is actually sent for recycling. Four major color coded biomedical waste categories in Indian system. Next question, orthotoledine test is used for measuring which of the following compounds? Friends, orthotoledine test, that is known as OT test, is used during chlorination of water. Also is used a similar test known as OTA test. Whereas OT test is orthotoledine test, OTA test is orthotoledine arsenide test. Now friends, when we are doing chlorination of water, three different levels of chlorine we must know. One is the free chlorine, another is the combined chlorine, and another one is the total chlorine level. When we look at orthotoledine test, it tells us two levels separately. First is free chlorine level, and second it tells us is free and combined chlorine. So total chlorine you can say. In contrast, when we look at OTA test, it is slightly more advantageous because it tells you free chlorine level as well as combined chlorine level both separately. So OTA test is better than OT test. One more reason OTA test is better is because it is not affected by presence of inorganic impurities. So look at the choices to this question. Best answer for OT test is choice number A, free chlorine and combined chlorine. Another question, this also came from occupational health, as we have discussed in detail in my mobile app videos. Man working in a place where they store ground nuts. Friends, I should say this is the clue in the question. And he developed some sort of poisoning. Most likely this is letharism, ergotism, epidemic dropsy or aflatoxicosis. Friends, let's look at these food adulteration or types of poisonings. When we look at first letharism. Letharism occurs due to which particular food item being consumed? That is arhar dal. But arhar dal is not dangerous. It is adulterated with Lathyrus sativus. Common language known as, very right, khesri dal. When this particular dal, khesri dal, is mixed in similar looking arhar dal, it leads to production of a toxin known as BOA. What is BOA? Beta oxalyl aminoalanine. This leads to letharism. Two types, osteo and neuroletharism. Neuroletharism in humans is seen more commonly. When we look at ergotism, this occurs due to ergot toxin. And where it is reaching our body from? It is reaching our body through contaminated food grains like bajra, rye, sorghum or wheat. So basically this ergot is a field fungus. When you look at epidemic dropsy, this occurs when we are consuming mustard oil. See, mustard oil is not dangerous, but when it is adulterated with argemone mexicana oil, this leads to epidemic dropsy due to production of a particular toxin known as sanguinarine. Bilateral lower limb, non-inflammatory edema, congestive heart failure, glaucoma, even death can occur due to this sanguinarine. And finally, aflatoxicosis. It occurs due to consumption of contaminated groundnuts, and the toxin which leads to manifestation is aflatoxin. So answer to this question is aflatoxicosis. So friends, please remember, ergot is a type of field fungus, whereas aflatoxicosis occur due to a type of storage fungus. Keep moisture content below 10% to prevent aflatoxin generation in groundnuts. Aflatoxin are of many types. Out of them, B1 and G1 are most toxic or dangerous. Also remember, besides contaminated groundnuts, it can also occur due to contamination of maize, rice and sorghum also. Moving to the next question. This was a question from demography, fairly easy. Low stationary growth is which stage? Friends, when we look at demographic cycle, it has got 5 stages. These are, first is stage 1, where if you look, both birth rate as well as death rate are high. So this stage is known as high stationary stage. In stage number 2, birth rate remains high but death rate start declining. Why? Because there are improved medical facilities. Now birth rate is high but death rate has started decreasing. So population will expand. This is known as early expanding stage. In stage number 3, you will find that now death rate is declining but birth rate also start declining. Why? Family planning program in the country. So birth rate is declining, death rate is declining, but birth rate is still higher than death rate. So population will continue to expand. This is known as late expanding stage. What happens in stage 4? Ultimately, both these birth rate and death rate keep on declining as they become low. Again, population becomes stationary at low level. So this is known as low stationary stage. And finally, there is stage 5, where even death rate appears higher than birth rate. Now deaths will not increase because country has developed too much, but birth rate could be declined to any extent. So if deaths are higher than births, population will start declining. So this is known as declining stage. So these are the 5 stages. First is high stationary, early expanding, late expanding, low stationary, declining. India is currently in stage number 3, late expanding, where both birth rate and death rate are declining. Look at the question, they are simply asking low stationary growth. That is seen in stage number 4. Easy question if you know the concept. Moving to the next question. This was a fairly direct question we have discussed in the app also. Health checkup in village school is responsibility of sub-center, PHC, CHC or all of the above. Friends, we have discussed school vision screening program. School vision screening program. Vision screening of school children is done by, very right, class teachers. One teacher per 150 students. They have to refer the student if visual acuity of the student is below 6/9. And where will they refer the student to? They will refer the student to, yes, paramedic ophthalmic assistant located at PHC, where again visual testing will be done. If required, spectacles will be given. This is just vision we are talking of. Overall, school health is the responsibility of primary health center, and it is responsible for the health of all the school children falling within its jurisdiction. In fact, it is recommended that one medical officer is supposed to cover 5,000 to 6,000 children per year from the schools in his area, and if required it is permitted to even place additional staff at the primary health center level. So this health checkup, which is secondary level of prevention, is an actual responsibility given to primary health centers. Under Ayushman Bharat scheme, how many money can a family get per year as an insurance? 4 lakh, 5 lakh, 7 lakh, 9 lakh, or is it unlimited? Very right answer to this question is 5 lakh. Friends, when you look at Ayushman Bharat program, this is the logo. It is divided into two parts. First part of this program is HWC, that is Health and Wellness Center. 1.5 lakh such centers are provisioned to be developed in our country, mainly in the form of upgraded sub-centers, where essential drugs and free diagnostic services will be given. Second important component of Ayushman Bharat program is NHPS, National Health Protection Scheme, popularly known as PMJ, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Under the scheme, there is a provision to provide an insurance cover of rupees 5 lakh per family per year. And what is this insurance covered meant for? This is meant for secondary and tertiary level hospitalization. Around 10.74 crore families and total beneficiary 50 crores are supposed to be covered under this particular Ayushman Bharat program. A very often repeated topic in your exam, we have discussed in National Program for Control of Blindness and Visual Impairment topic in our mobile app also. A person has been given visual acuity in his right eye less than 3/60 and in his left eye perception of light is present. He belongs to which category of visual impairment? Is it low vision, economic, social, manifest? Friends, I remind you of the mnemonic that we have discussed in the video lecture, that is LESMA. L is low vision, E is economic blindness, S is social blindness, M is manifest blindness, and A is absolute blindness. What are these categories representing according to visual acuity? Low vision is less than 6/18 to 6/16 better eye with best possible correction. Economic blindness, also known as work vision, less than 6/60 to 3/60. Social blindness, also known as walk vision, is less than 3/60 to 1/60. Manifest blindness, less than 1/60 to perception of light present, whereas absolute blindness when perception of light is even absent. Now look at this particular question. It's a direct question. Right eye is less than 3/60. Left eye is perception of light present. So which eye is better? Definitely right eye is the better eye. So we will use this visual acuity to classify the person. So less than 3/60 you can see is social blindness. So answer to this question is choice number C, social blindness. And friends, what is the current definition of blindness? According to Indian program NPCBVI, it is less than 3/60, just like WHO definition of blindness. For screening of cervical cancer, which is the most cost effective method? Is it pap smear? Is it via visual inspection of cervix with 5% acetic acid? Is it biopsy or colposcopy? Friends, when we compare different methods with each other, especially for screening, pap smear is no doubt good. But if you go into more detail, then HPV testing and via test turn out to be more cost effective. So answer to this question is choice number B, visual inspection of cervix with 5% acetic acid. Biopsy colposcopic punch biopsy have better role in diagnosis and they are quite expensive tests to carry out. Whether screening or diagnosis, all these represent secondary level of prevention. Moving to the next question, first referral units of India. Friends, as we have discussed in healthcare system topic in the mobile app, if you have gone through the video, Indian primary healthcare system has been divided into 3 levels. These are primary level, secondary level, tertiary level. Primary level is first contact level, where population should first report with any problem. This includes in India sub-center and primary health centers. If a person is not able to get treatment here, he is referred to secondary level because that is more specialized. So secondary level becomes first referral level of India. And in that referral units, role is played by either community health center or sub-district hospitals. And if a person is unable to get treatment here, refer him even to higher, more specialized tertiary level. Therefore, tertiary level is known as second referral level of India. This role is mainly played by medical colleges in cities, because these medical colleges are attached with hospital. So looking at this question, first referral units of India are definitely community health center and sub-district hospital. Whereas sub-center is per 5,000 population in plains, PHC is for 30,000 population in plains, a CHC is for 1,20,000 population in the plains. Now friends, based on the current ongoing epidemic situation in the country and pandemic situation in the world, there was a question. A man returning from China on January 2020 was taken swab test. Look at the image given. What is the screening done on him? Is it TrueNat test? Is it real-time RT-PCR? Is it CBNet or is it rapid antigen? Friends, the diagram which is given, this you have to understand. This diagram is actually depicting real-time RT-PCR test used for COVID-19. So we have to remember, we are looking at the disease coronavirus disease 2019. Clue in the photograph is a man returning from China on January 2020. Let us look at this particular graph in detail. In real-time RT-PCR, we use this CT levels. And what is this CT level? This is cycle threshold levels to decide the level of infectivity or infection attained or received by a person. Friends, when we look at this diagram even more closely, you will find this is how this diagram looks like. So on the x-axis is number of cycles, 10, 20, 30, 40 could be the numbers. Let's say 10, 20, 30, 40 like so on. And on the y-axis is fluorescence. When you use any particular sample as given in this particular question, actually in real-time RT-PCR, the positive reaction is shown due to accumulation of fluorescent signal. And when we look at CT cycles, CT cycle threshold is number of cycles required to reach that threshold potential due to the fluorescent signal. Please remember, CT level is generally inversely related to nucleic acid in the sample. And how do we calculate the CT cycle score or number? If you see, the sample graph is in blue color, you can see this one, and a horizontal line depicts threshold, this one by red color. So wherever this sample exponential graph and straight threshold line cross, and from that particular point you drop a perpendicular, that will give you CT cycle score. When we look at CT cycle score, it is helping us decide whether the reaction is highly positive or strongly positive or mildly positive. So it has been found, if CT is less than or equal to 29, then it is strongly positive. If it is 30 to 37, moderately positive. If it is 38 or above, it is weakly positive. Another question was asked, a 2-year-old child, bottle fed, irritable, extremely thirsty. Keep on looking at these keywords. So definitely is suffering from dehydration. Since last 2 days is brought to PHC, 14 episodes of diarrhea in last week. So definitely he is a case of dehydration. But the key important thing in the question, child was eager to drink. What should be done? Friends, this is what will help you clinch the answer. Eager to drink. Whenever a child is eager to drink, you have to give him something to drink orally which can replenish or replace his dehydration with the correct hydration level. That is ORS, oral rehydration solution. For children, definitely ORS. If there is eagerness to drink shown by older children or adults, then along with ORS, drinking water should also be supplemented. So ORS becomes the management of choice in such a child. If a child is unable to drink, then we look at IV fluids. Under IV fluids, if you look, Ringer lactate is the best commercially available solution, but according to WHO, ideal solution for IV rehydration is DTS, diarrhea treatment solution. We can use normal saline also, but normal saline is actually considered poorest solution for IV rehydration. So now we will give him ORS as much as he wants to drink. Image based question, refer to the image below. Bull neck is seen in. You can see the neck of this child is bull like, bull neck. This is actually pathognomic feature of which disease? We have discussed in the communicable disease video section also. This is diphtheria disease caused by Corynebacterium diphtheria. And friends, why does this bull neck occurs? This occurs due to cervical lymphadenopathy and along with that swollen mucosa or soft tissue edema. Please remember, pseudomembrane is not the pathognomic clinical feature of diphtheria. Bull neck appearance is the pathognomic clinical feature of diphtheria. Then beyond pneumoconiosis, another question came from occupational health. A person working in dye industry now presents to OPD with symptoms of bladder problems, most probable diagnosis. Friends, dye industry, bladder problem. So we are talking of, very right, bladder carcinoma. Occupational cancers, bladder carcinoma is one of the commonest and that is associated with, very right, not just dye industry but also with beta naphthylamines, also with exposure to benzidine, auramine, magenta and with para-aminophenyl. So they can lead to bladder cancer, and out of them most common histological subtype is TCC, transitional cell carcinoma, that is urothelial type. Now friends, for bladder cancer, these are the exposures, but what are the industries in which it is seen? That is seen in industries where there is use of dye and dye stuffs, use of rubber, gas industry, and also in electric cable industry. And as all of you are aware, for this bladder cancer, intravesical BCG is quite useful as a therapeutic measure for superficial tumors. Health worker female is going out in public once every 15 days for malaria surveillance. This is which type of surveillance? Friends, surveillance is defined as continuous scrutiny of all factors affecting a disease, and it is with attention, authority and suspicion. This particular surveillance is of three types. These are active, passive and sentinel. The biggest component is passive surveillance, where patient reports to health system on his own. You are sitting in the OPD of a PHC or a medical college. A patient has fever, diarrhea, comes to you. So this is passive surveillance. 90% of surveillance is done passively in our health programs. Active surveillance is opposite of that, where health system goes to community to search for cases. It is mainly seen in many programs, but mainly seen in malaria program. Friends, although active surveillance can be done by female health worker in malaria program, but mainly it is the role of male health worker or male multi-purpose worker. What this male health worker has to do? He has to visit all houses in his catchment area once every 15 days, ask if there is a case of fever. If yes, he will make a slide and bring it back to the center for diagnosis and subsequently treatment if required. So this is active surveillance. If patient is not coming to us, we are going to community to search for cases. This active surveillance is also done in polio program and now has started in even TB program of our country. Now 90% passive surveillance, remaining surveillance is done by active surveillance. So what is the role of the third surveillance, that is sentinel surveillance? Friends, sentinel surveillance is to identify hidden or missing cases. It becomes quite important in identification of HIV positives in National AIDS Control Program, commercial sex worker, injecting drug users also. So looking at this question, this is a type of very right active surveillance, because health worker is going to the public once every 15 days for malaria surveillance. Friends, all these types of surveillances are secondary level of prevention. Next question, most common cancer of head and neck region of India is? Very right, it is oral cavity. Friends, when we look at males, then lip oblique oral cavity carcinoma is the commonest cancer of males in our country. This is followed by lung cancer, stomach cancer, colorectal cancer and esophageal cancer. In females, breast cancer is the most common cancer, which becomes the overall commonest cancer of Indian population also. A pregnant female scratched by a street dog, treatment given. Friends, when we are looking at scratch by a street dog, we are looking at which disease? Very right, rabies. Rabies is a nearly 100% fatal disease. So even in pregnancy, timely management has to be started. Now friends, when we look at dog bites or other animal bites, they are broadly divided into three categories, class 1 to 3. So class 1 bite, class 2 bite and class 3 bite. Class 1 bite, which bites are included? This includes mainly licks on unbroken skin. Class 2 bites include scratched, but this is without oozing of blood. And class 3 bites mainly include if there are multiple scratches which are transdermal and there is oozing of blood, or if there is a wild unknown animal or there is abrasion or laceration with bleed, that is also included in category 3. When we look at their management, category 1 or class 1 bite management is just local wound management, washed extensively with soap and water for 15 to 20 minutes. When we look at class 2, then we say local wound management but along with that vaccine has to be given. But in class 3 bites we include local wound management, along with that vaccine, and along with that rabies immunoglobulin. Now look at this particular question, scratched by a street dog. So we are looking at which class bite? This is class 2 bite, because no mention has been made of multiple scratches or oozing of blood. So this is class 2. How will we manage? We will give local wound treatment along with rabies vaccine to this pregnant woman. Again, a primary level of prevention. Most popular fertility indicator among the following. Friends, when we look at these indicators, what are these? CBR, crude birth rate. This is number of births taking place in a country per 1000 mid-year population. TFR, this is total fertility rate. This is total number of children born to a woman in her entire reproductive lifespan. GFR, this is general fertility rate, number of live births per 1000 women mid-year population. NRR, net reproduction rate. This is total number of girls born to a woman in her entire reproductive lifespan, taking into account their mortality. Now friends, let's read the question. Question says most popular fertility indicator. That is definitely TFR, total fertility rate, which also indicates completed family size. Friends, crude birth rate is also a fertility indicator, but it is crude in nature. It is not very useful. General fertility rate is actually a type of refined indicator. But when we look at overall completeness of fertility, because completed family size is indicated by TFR, that is the most popular fertility indicator. Net reproduction rate is the best epidemiological indicator which indicate growth of the population also. Another question asked in the same paper, average number of children born to a woman over a reproductive lifespan. As we have just discussed, this is total fertility rate, also known as completed family size. Compare it with gross reproduction rate, which tells you total number of girls produced or born to a woman in her entire reproductive lifespan. NRR, net reproduction rate, is also same. This is also number of girls born to a woman in her entire reproductive lifespan, but taking into account their mortality. So I'll again repeat in simple words. TFR, total fertility rate, is total children born to a woman or couple. GRR, gross reproduction rate, total number of girl children born to a woman or couple. NRR, net reproduction rate, total number of girl children born to a couple minus deaths. So total number of living girl children is net reproduction rate. And as we discussed, general fertility rate is number of live births per 1000 mid-year population, a refined indicator of fertility. Vitamin which increases iron absorption. Friends, whatever we consume in diet, phytates, tannates, oxalates, calcium, medications, everything inhibits iron absorption. Therefore, iron absorption from Indian diets is hardly 5 to 10%. But there is one vitamin which actually increases iron absorption. That is vitamin C or ascorbic acid. What does it do? It actually captures non-heme iron and it stores in the body in such a form that is more easily absorbable. One very good feature of vitamin C is it actually is able to reverse the inhibitory effect of T, calcium and phosphorus on iron absorption. So that also leads to more iron absorption in the body. Now a clinical scenario based question was asked in the exam. A boy returned from Assam. Assam is a northeastern state. After a few days he developed fever, malaise, confusion, arthralgia. Plasmodium falciparum diagnosis was made. Treatment regimen. Friends, we know drug of choice for Plasmodium falciparum in India is artemisinin derivatives, no doubt. But exact drug depends on the region of the country the person belongs to. If a person belongs to other parts of India, then the drug of choice for that person is ACTSP. It is a combination therapy of three drugs. These are artesunate, sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine. CT is combination therapy. Artesunate is given for first 3 days, whereas sulfadoxine pyrimethamine is only given for day 1. Along with that, primaquine is given on day 2. But if the case belongs to northeastern states of the country, which includes state Assam, which is given in the question, then the person will not get artesunate, sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine combination therapy. Rather, he will get ACTLM. It is a combination therapy of two drugs. These are artemether and lumefantrine. Both are given for 3 days with primaquine given on day 2. So answer to this question is choice number D, artemether. Next question. An intern has to study relationship between ordering food online and development of obesity. So we can see ordering food online is the exposure or the risk factor, and development of obesity is the disease effect or outcome. And it is mentioned in the question this has to be done using a case control study. Best study groups to be included. Case control study is a retrospective backward looking study. What we do in this case control study, we start with cases, those who are having the disease, and we take a comparison group of controls, those who are not having the disease, and then we go in a backward direction to ask history of exposure. So how will we conduct this case control study? We will take obese people as cases and non-obese people as controls. Then we will go back in time, and from both the groups we will ask the same history, that how many of them actually did order food online. Then we can make a 2 by 2 table, and we can calculate our strength of association by odds ratio, AD by BC. If it comes more than 1, association is definitely present between development of obesity after ordering food online. So friends, question says best study groups to be selected. In case control study, you select cases and control. So we will start with obese and non-obese people. A fairly easy question. Answer will be choice number C. Open vial policy is not applicable for. Friends, as we discussed, open vial policy is, earlier we have discussed in a question, is applicable for DPT, tetanus toxoid, hepatitis B, OPV, pentavalent vaccine, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, and IPV, that is Salk vaccine. In comparison, it is not applicable for lyophilized vaccines like BCG, measles MR, JE, Japanese encephalitis vaccine, and also for rotavirus vaccine. So answer to this question is fairly simple, choice number D. Next question. open vial policy is not applicable for? Friends, as we have discussed in a previous question, open vial policy permits reuse of open multi-dose vials of few vaccines, and they can be used up till 28 days if proper guidelines are followed. These open vial policy guidelines are applicable for which vaccines? DPT, TT, hepatitis B, oral polio vaccine, pentavalent, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, and IPV, inactivated polio vaccine. And for which vaccines they are not applicable? Lyophilized vaccines like BCG, they are not applicable. Measles and MR vaccine, they are not applicable. Japanese encephalitis vaccine, they are not applicable. Also, they are not applicable for rotavirus vaccine. So, answer to this question is fairly simple, measles vaccine. Let's move to the next question. Demographic bonuses. Friends, actually, the more technically correct word is demographic dividend. And what is this demographic bonus or demographic dividend? This is economic growth contribution is more. And when it is more demographically, if working population is higher than non-working population. So if economically productive group, working group is more than non-economically productive or non-working population. And when will it happen? When fertility goes down and when mortality also goes down. This leads to a economic stimulation known as demographic bonus or demographic dividend. So answer to this question is choice number B, increase in productive age population. Another question from vaccine. Vaccine with faster seroconversion time as compared to incubation period is? Very right, measles vaccine. Now friends, when we look at incubation period of measles disease, how much it is? It is around 10 to 14 days. Now, measles is a live attenuated vaccine. When it is given to any child, it induces mild measles in the body. That is known as VIM, vaccine induced measles. And incubation period of this vaccine induced measles is only 7 days. So, if someone comes in contact with a measles case, he will develop measles in next 10 to 14 days. But if he takes vaccine, immunity will start forming within 7 days, and by 10, 11th or 12th day, a very good lifelong immunity is likely to be formed. So, measles vaccine forms immunity faster than natural incubation period of the disease. This is the reason measles is the only vaccine which is used in during its epidemic. And similar reason, measles is one of the only vaccine which is used post disaster also. So this live attenuated vaccine Edmonston Zagreb strain is quite a useful vaccine. Another simple question converted to a clinical scenario based question. Total fertility rate of 4 cities are given. City A 2.1, City B 2.6, City C 2.7, City D 2.8. Which of the city has achieved desirable TFR? What is TFR? Total fertility rate. And what is the goal we want for TFR is? Very right, 2.1. Every couple or every woman should produce 2.1 children in her entire reproductive lifespan. Then NRR is likely to become close to 1. Then population is expected to stabilize. For this, couple protection rate should be more than 60%. Now friends, to achieve this TFR of 2.1, this was earlier envisaged in 12th 5-year plan goals also. That was meant to be achieved by 2017, and now they are mentioned in National Health Policy 2017 goals also, that we have to achieve TFR 2.1 by the year 2025. So only city which has attained the desirable TFR is city number A. So choice A, city A, TFR 2.1 is the desirable TFR achieved. Another clinical question, orchitis is a complication of which common childhood disease? Very right, that is mumps. Now friends, when we look at mumps caused by myxovirus parotitis, incubation period 14 to 21 days, secondary attack rate 86%. Then when we look at its most common complication, then please remember you have to attempt the question very carefully. This is a viral disease which can affect all age groups. So when we look at children, the most common complication of mumps found is aseptic meningitis. When we look at adolescents, commonest complication reported is orchitis in males, oophorytis in females. And when we look at adults, then the commonest complication of mumps reported is meningo, encephalomyelitis. Now friends, this is according to different age groups. But if you are asked most common complication of mumps overall, now you tell me in which of these age groups mumps is commonest found? Mumps is commonest found in children 5 to 9 years. So aseptic meningitis is overall the commonest complication of mumps. Mind you, it's not orchitis. Aseptic meningitis is the most common complication of mumps in our country. Now, one of the easiest repeated question of your paper, identify the organism shown in the photograph. Yes, you can see so many clues are given. GP120, GP41, reverse transcriptase. So, this is HIV virus particle. How to identify human immunodeficiency virus particle? It has got 2 single strand RNA. You can see in the center of the viral particle. Along with that, there are minimum 15 viral proteins along with few from the host cell also. Also, you have got a bilipid membrane layer also for this viral particle. Then there was a question from management. In a hospital, the management wants to know how much time is doctor is spending with patients on an average. They want to decrease the number of doctors as per the requirement to improve the quality of care. This management technique is known as, very right, this is actually the definition of work sampling. Sampling of doctors or nurses to assess the quality of their work in a hospital. Friends, why it cannot be FGD, focus group discussion, that is discussion among a group of people on any health topic. Why it is not systems analysis? Systems analysis is comparison of 2 different management techniques to compare their cost effectiveness and choosing the better one. Why it is not network analysis? Network analysis is PERT, program evaluation review technique, where we look at sequence of activities in a health program, and CPM, critical path method, where we look at the longest path in terms of duration to identify the critical path. So this is definitely work sampling management technique. And friends, then we look at for immunization survey in our community, what is the first step to be done? Friends, when you are looking at immunization survey in a community, first of all, you need to know the total population. After that, you will decide which age group you will use to assess immunization coverage. Then you will try to form clusters of population in the given population if you are using cluster random sampling, and after that you will do sampling, and in that chosen sample you will do the immunization coverage assessment. Now in this particular method, if you have noticed which I have described, you have to first know the total population age wise in your given community. So first and foremost step is to get the census date. So first and foremost step to start immunization survey in a community is to get census date of that particular community. Then you can select clusters or group of population from that, and then you can do sampling and do the immunization coverage assessment. And friends, now we come to final question from this FMG June 2021 from the PSM subject. This was a image based question where two graphs were given. First was a component bar diagram. Second was a pie chart. They asked study the graphs given below for different occupational groups. Four groups were given: industrial workers, white collar workers, farmers and housewives. Analyze and mark who has got the highest chance of developing fever. So friends, just to make the question more clear for you, let us look at these two images in a slightly zoom mode. Now let us try to understand. First we look at graph number 2, that is a pie chart. It says total worker distribution. You can see industrial workers are 50%, white collar workers are 20% of the total sample, farmers are 20%, housewives are 10%. Now we look at graph number 1. This is actually a component bar diagram. In each of these four professional worker group, we are shown how many of them have fever, blue color, or they are not having fever, orange color. So when we look at industrial workers, you can see blue, 50% of them have got fever. When we look at white collar workers, 90% have got fever. When we look at farmers, again 50% have fever. And when we look at housewives, only 20% have fever. 50, 90, 50, 20. These are how many of them develop fever. Now let us go back to our original question. Industrial workers, 50% chance of development of fever. White collar jobs, 90% chance of development of fever. Farmers, 50% again, and housewives 20. So who has the highest chance of development of fever? That is white collar jobs. Friends, with this question we come to the end of FMG June 2021 PSM, which was quite an exhaustive but still very easy paper this time. Now before we go, I just want to share one important thing with you. Friends, mantra of my life. I personally believe sincerely that success is achieved by ordinary people who have extraordinary determination. I am also an ordinary doctor and most of you are also ordinary. So just have hard work in your mind, extraordinary determination in you. No one can stop you from achieving your goal or success. With this, I thank you for being a part of this particular session. Hopefully, it will help you in all the forthcoming examinations. Stay safe, stay healthy, best of luck.